So here we are, Parshas Bereishis, Tafshin Pei Base, 5782. And we just finished celebrating Simchas Torah, rejoicing with the completion of the Torah and getting ready for a brand new year of learning the Torah from the beginning, taking into the year all the blessings that God Almighty has given us, having been assured that we've emerged vindicated in judgment. God has forgiven all our transgressions from the previous year. He's established for us our well-being, our parnasa, our income, rain for the entire world's food, and the food should be secure. All the different prayers that we made during Sukkot and through the whole holiday season, we're now sure that now we have to come back into the world, that the practical realities of the world. And we see that the Torah starts with Bereishis bara Elokim, the Lord created the heavens and the earth. And we see that God created the world in 7 days. And just like we have a commandment, or actually, first we have the statement that God rested on the seventh day. He finished all his creative activity and he rested on the seventh day. But in order for that to be meaningful to us, we have to take action. So it's not just enough for us to say, oh, yeah, God created the world in 7 days. That's a great historical fact or even continuing fact that God continues the world. But we actually have to take an action, which is to commemorate the fact that God Almighty created the world in 7 days by, in 6 days and then rested on the seventh day. We have to commemorate that by recognizing, stopping, pausing, and recognizing and commemorating with our families that God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh day. If we were just to say, yeah, I believe this, and that was somehow going to be enough, that would not be enough. We have to do something physical in the world to acknowledge that God created the world, to acknowledge that we really believe that. And there's two components of that. There's the components of actually positively acknowledging and remembering, and there's the commandments that relate to withholding from activity in the world, withholding from creative activity in the world. So we need to apply this concept to everything else that God Almighty is telling us in the Torah and Parshas Bereishis. When he tells us that it is for us, it's our job to civilize the world, when he tells us our job to bring the world to a place of recognizing God Almighty, that's the purpose of creation. When he tells us that we are meant to be prosperous in the world, we're meant to bring humanity to recognize God Almighty, we're supposed to make sure that there should be no murders in the world. There's not supposed to be theft in the world. When God Almighty tells us these things, that this is why he created the world and how he created the world, we have to recognize it's not enough for us to say, oh, I believe that's fine. But the fact that people are getting, I think they saw the number, 70 million abortions in the world happening. 70,000 in the land of Israel, 70 million around the world every single year. We can't just say, oh, well, that's just, I don't think that's the right thing, but I'm not going to do anything about it. That would be the equivalent to saying, yeah, I really believe that God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh, but, the person's not going to keep Shabbos. No, a person has to actually physically take action to show that this is what he believes. And so too, we believe that God created man in his image. He created man in order to civilize the world, and every human being coming into the world is a expression of God's image in the world. Therefore, it's our job to do everything possible to prevent that from happening. And therefore, it's not for us to say, oh, you know what, that's okay that the politician is over there, he's running and he's advocating abortion, he's advocating against procreation and advocating for behaviors that absolutely stop, sometimes permanently, any ability of the human being to procreate. Well, it doesn't really affect me. No, it does affect me. It affects me because my job is in bringing the world the knowledge of the knowledge of God and the knowledge of everyone is created in the divine image. So a person either doesn't make an effort to make sure that the laws of the country are being run correctly, like one of the 7 divine commandments that God Almighty gave to the sons of Noah and his sons, and also to Moses on Mount Sinai from God Almighty to be taught to the entire world through the Jewish people, is the commandment to set up courts of justice. There has to be rules, and the rules have to be according to the Torah. So how could a person who learns the Torah possibly conceive that he's going to now go out and vote for people who are working to specifically to undermine the very creation of the world. They're trying to bring destruction to humanity, destruction to the divine moral code that God commanded to all of humanity. A person cannot possibly claim on one hand to be very careful about one point in the Torah. Let's say he's going to get up in the morning and put on tefillin, put on the phylacteries, and the next minute he's going to go and vote for somebody who is actually promoting and funding and encouraging the murder of human beings through abortion. One second here, this is clearly a murder, as it says in the Torah, and therefore God Almighty does not want us to stand by idly when that happens. We need to be able, the reason we're putting on tefillin is so that we should know that we will not have nothing to be afraid of when we speak to the world and say to the world that this is the right way to conduct things, and this is not, the opposite is not the right way to conduct things. The tefillin gives us the ability to be not afraid, and that the world should see that the name of God is called upon us. So therefore, our lesson for Parshas Bereishis is to take to heart the recognition that God Almighty is giving us power, He's giving us the creation, He's giving us existence at every instant because He values every single human being. And we are not in a position to write off any human being and say, oh, the people in that neighborhood doesn't really make a difference. People in that country is not really important. That is the exact opposite of God Almighty's desire, that there should be created a dwelling place in this lowest world, that there's no lower than it. Okay, so before we had the interruption of the power outage, but the point is that we want the power to keep coming from God Almighty. We don't want the power to go out. If we are given the power to be able to change the world and to bring the world to a state of civilization and righteousness, we don't want it to be going to waste by people mistakenly saying, oh, how much money can I get for this organization? How much money can I get for this? As long as the tax breaks are good, then that's okay. You get letters from politicians saying, oh, they lobbied for this and they got X number of millions of dollars for school security, for private school security. And they say they negotiated, they bargained for it. Well, 1 second. You have to ask the question, what did they give in return? What did they sign off on agreeing to? How many tens of millions of dollars and hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars are going into things that are directly against God's will. So for a measly few $100,000 or a few $1 million for some initiative, which itself is important, but pales in comparison to the destruction that is brought to the world, and they're getting money for school security, but then they're bringing a total insecurity to the entire world with the rest of the state budget or the federal budget. So what exactly is being accomplished other than creating an illusion that somehow things are okay because this little type of funding was provided, but the rest of the world was sacrificed. The rest of our well-being was sacrificed. The rest of humanity's well-being is sacrificed in the process. So that's clearly not what God's intention is. God's intention is that we should speak up for what's right. And a person is going to say, well, what should they do? The whole world is going in a certain direction. That's because we're silent. If we are not silent, instead we speak up and say no to the abortions, and no to the physician-assisted suicide, no to the euthanasia, no to the rationing of healthcare, and deciding who's eligible and not eligible, and essential and not essential, and all the different definitions and all the different systems that are being put into place to decide who's healthy and who's not healthy, and who's meritorious and not meritorious, and who's eligible and not eligible, and on and on and on. Our job is to take what it says in this Parsha Bereishis seriously and put it to work in reality, and to bring that message to all of humanity, that all of humanity is created in God's image, and that requires of us a certain responsibility and a certain action on the part of the entire Jewish people and every member of humanity, every human being. And with that, we wish you a good Shabbos.